The night on the broken colony world was silent, but not peaceful. The human engineer walked carefully among the ruins, his boots crunching against the shattered metal floor. Fires still burned in the distance, small flickers of orange against the endless dark sky. He was used to silence now. The war had taken almost everyone. Yet tonight something felt different. He could feel eyes watching him. He paused, hand resting on the tool at his side. It was not a weapon, not really. Just a heavy wrench he carried everywhere. His heart pounded faster as the wind blew through the ruins, carrying strange sounds. The ruins were not safe at night. Patrols passed overhead. Strange creatures hunted the weak, and sometimes shadows themselves seemed alive. Then he heard it. A whisper. Faint, fragile, almost lost in the cold wind. Human. He spun around. His breath caught. From behind a pile of broken walls, a small figure stepped out. At first he thought it was a child of his own kind. But no, the skin was pale blue, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her eyes were too large, shining like silver pools. Her hair looked like threads of white fire. She was no human child. She was alien. The man froze. His mind raced. The laws of the galaxy were clear. Humans were forbidden to take in alien young. Punishment was death. He should walk away. He should not even be here with her. But the girl looked at him not with fear, but with hope. She was trembling, her small hands gripping her thin arms, trying to stay warm. Her clothes were torn, her knees bruised. She looked weak, but her eyes burned with something stronger than fear. "Call me your daughter," she whispered. Her voice cracked like broken glass. "I want you to be my father." The man felt his chest tighten. For a moment he could not breathe. Of all the things she could have said, this was the most dangerous. He took a step back. "You should not be here," he said in a low voice. "If the soldiers see me with you, we will both be killed." But the girl shook her head. A small, desperate smile spread across her face. "Please, just call me your daughter. Even if it is only for tonight, I need a father." The words cut into him. He turned his eyes away, staring at the fires burning in the distance. Memories clawed at his mind, memories of his own family, long gone. His wife, his real daughter, all lost in the war. He had sworn never to care again, never to let the pain return, and yet here she was, another child. Not human, not his. But begging for the same word, he clenched his fists. "I am not your father." "I cannot be." Her smile faded. Her shoulders sank. For a moment he thought she might run, but instead she stepped closer. She was so small, barely reaching his chest. Her silver eyes searched his face. "Then who will protect me?" The question struck him like a blade. His throat burned. He had no answer. He wanted to turn away, to leave her in the ruins. That would be safer. That would be the smart choice. But his feet refused to move. Suddenly a sound broke the silence. A deep mechanical hum. Lights flashed across the sky. The patrol ships were coming. The girl's eyes widened with fear. She grabbed his hand without asking. Her skin was cold, trembling against his rough palm. "They are looking for me," she whispered. "If they find me, I will disappear, forever." The man's heart pounded. He looked down at her hand in his, so small, so fragile. He could push her away. He could run. But instead his grip tightened. Against his will. Against the law. Against everything he had promised himself. "Come," he said sharply. "We must hide." They rushed into the shadows, slipping between the broken walls. The sound of the patrol ships grew louder, beams of light sweeping across the ruins. The girl pressed close to him, breathing hard, clutching his arm as if letting go meant death. They crouched behind a fallen pillar, waiting as the light passed just inches away. His heart thudded in his chest, every second stretching into forever. The patrol moved on, the humming fading into the distance. The silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. Now it carried a secret, a bond. The man exhaled slowly. He looked at the girl. She was still holding his hand tightly, her silver eyes filled with tears. But there was also something else there, something dangerous. Hope. And hope was harder to kill than any law. For the first time in years, the man felt the weight of choice pressing down on him. He had not agreed to be her father. He had not spoken the word, but the way she looked at him made it feel as if the choice was already made. The night was not peaceful. The war was not over. The galaxy would not forgive him. But in that moment, with the alien child's hand gripping his, he knew one truth. This was only the beginning. The ruins were quiet again, but the human engineer could not find peace. The alien child sat near the broken wall, her knees pulled to her chest, watching him with those silver eyes that seemed too old for her small body. He tried to look away, to ignore the way she stared at him, but her presence filled the air like a fire he could not put out. He knew the law. Everyone knew the law. Humans were not allowed to take alien children as their own. It was one of the strongest rules of the Galactic Council. To cross that line was to be branded as dangerous, as a threat to balance. The punishment was not light. It was exile at best and execution at worst. He reminded himself of this again and again. The girl was not his. She could never be his. But his heart whispered something else, something he didn't want to hear. The girl spoke softly, her voice shaking. "Do you know why they chase me?" He did not answer at first. He was fixing a broken device, pretending not to hear her. But she did not stop. "They say, I belong to no one, that I am lost property. But I do not want to belong to soldiers. I want to belong to a father." Her words cut deep. He clenched the wrench so hard his knuckles turned white. He wanted to shout at her, to silence the dangerous hope in her voice. But when he turned, he saw her trembling. Her arms were covered in bruises, her face pale with hunger. She was not trying to trick him. She was simply a child asking for love. "Do not say that again," he said sharply. "Not to me. Not to anyone." Her eyes widened. "But why? Is it so wrong to want a father?" He looked away, his chest heavy. Memories pressed into his mind like blades. He saw his own daughter again, her laugh, her small hand in his. He saw her face the day she died in the bombing. He had buried her with his own hands. The pain had never left. It had only been locked away deep inside. And now this alien child's voice was breaking it open again. He could not tell her this. He could not explain. So he stayed silent. The girl hugged her knees tighter. "If you do not call me daughter, then the soldiers will take me. They will put me in the camps. I hear what they do in the camps." Her voice broke and tears slipped down her cheeks. "No one comes out." The man's jaw tightened. He had heard the same stories. The camps were not for protecting children. They were for controlling them, turning them into weapons or erasing them if they could not be used. Before he could answer, a voice boomed across the night sky. A metallic announcement from the patrol ship overhead. "Attention, citizens. Alien child reported missing. Any human found sheltering her will face death by galactic law. Report suspicious activity immediately." The words echoed through the ruins, cold and sharp. The girl flinched, pressing herself against the wall as if the sound itself could kill her. The man's chest filled with fire. He wanted to cover her ears to shield her from the cruel words. But he forced his hands to stay at his sides. This was the law of the galaxy. To break it meant throwing away everything, do you hear? He said, forcing his voice to stay firm. "This is why I cannot be your father." Her lips trembled. Tears blurred her silver eyes, but she lifted her chin with surprising courage. "Then let them come. If the galaxy hates me, I will still call you father." The man's breath caught. He felt something inside him breaking. How could a child have such strength while he, a grown man, trembled with fear? He turned his back on her, staring at the broken horizon. His heart pounded with every memory of his lost family. The same argument echoed in his head: do not care. Do not love. Do not break the law. But behind him the girl whispered again so quietly he almost didn't hear. "If you are not my father, then I will die without ever having one." The silence that followed was heavier than any law. He closed his eyes. His chest ached as if a blade was buried deep inside. He wanted to walk away, to leave her before it was too late, but his feet would not move. His hands shook. His breathing grew uneven. He knew what this meant. He was already breaking. That night he did not sleep. He sat awake, guarding the girl as she curled up in the corner, finally drifting into restless dreams. He told himself it was only for tonight, just until morning, just until he found a safer place to leave her. But deep inside he knew the truth. The law of the galaxy was clear, but so was the law of his heart. And one day soon he would be forced to choose which one to follow. Far above, the patrol ships circled the sky, their cold lights sweeping across the ruins. The hunt was not over. It was only beginning. The colony ruins became their shelter. Broken walls, collapsed roofs, and burned-out machines hid them from the soldiers who searched day and night. The man told himself it was only temporary. He told himself that soon he would find a place to leave the alien child, somewhere safer than with him. But every day she stayed, and every night she whispered the word he feared most. Father. He never answered. He tried to ignore it, but the way her silver eyes shined when she said it made his chest ache. He could not stop her, and though he told himself he didn't care, he found himself watching her, protecting her, teaching her how to survive in silence. At first she was weak. Her steps were small, her arms thin as sticks. She coughed when the cold night air grew sharp. He gave her pieces of his food, though he told her it was waste, scraps he didn't need. She ate carefully, always leaving some for him. When he asked why, she only smiled and said, "That's what daughters do. They share with their fathers." He said nothing, but inside his walls began to crack. During the long nights, while the patrol ships hummed above, he worked on broken machines. She sat near him, curious, asking endless questions. Why do humans use wires? Why is fire hot? Why do your hands shake when you look at the stars? He never wanted to talk about the stars. They reminded him of the family he had lost. But her questions were like sunlight breaking into his dark world. Sometimes he even answered. One night she found an old slate, cracked but still working. She used it to draw pictures. First she drew the ruins. Then she drew him, tall, tired, holding his wrench. Finally, she drew herself standing beside him, smiling. Over both of them, she wrote one word in shaky human letters. Father. He stared at the picture for a long time, his throat tight. He wanted to tear it apart to stop this dangerous dream, but instead he hid it in his bag. He told himself it was only so no soldier would find it. Days passed. Slowly, she grew stronger. He taught her small things. How to stay quiet when the patrols came. How to read the strange warning signs humans left behind. How to repair broken filters so they could breathe clean air in the tunnels. She learned quickly, her hand steady, her mind sharp. One evening, as they sat in the flickering light of a tiny fire, she took his hand in both of hers. Her skin was warm now, not freezing like before. She looked up at him with her glowing eyes. You don't have to say it, she whispered. I already know. Know what? He asked, though his voice was rough. That you care. He pulled his hand away, standing quickly. I told you. I am not your father. I will not break the law for you. She lowered her gaze. For a moment, silence filled the space between them. Then she whispered so soft he almost didn't hear. If you are not my father, then I am no one's child. And no one's child will die in the dark. Her words pierced through his armor. He wanted to shout, to command her never to speak like that again. But the truth pressed heavy against him. Without him, she would not survive. He already knew it. And maybe she knew it too. That night, as he lay awake, he remembered the patrols, the warnings, the law. But he also remembered the way she smiled when she learned something new. The way she tried to share food. The way she whispered father as if the word itself could keep her alive. The next morning, danger came closer. Voices echoed through the ruins, soldiers searching house by house. The man grabbed her hand and pulled her into the tunnels below. Their footsteps splashed in the shallow water as they ran, hearts pounding. The soldiers' voices grew louder, the beams of their scanners slicing through the darkness. The girl clung to him, her small body pressed against his as they hid behind a fallen pipe. His heart thundered, every second stretching into forever. At last the soldiers passed, their voices fading. The girl let out a shaky breath. He realized his arms were wrapped around her, holding her tight. She looked up at him with shining eyes. See, you protected me. That is what fathers do. He wanted to deny it, to push her away. But the truth was there, heavy and unshakable. He had protected her. Not because of duty, not because of law, but because she had already become something he could not lose. Later that night, when she finally slept beside the broken wall, he sat watching her. Her face looked peaceful for the first time since he had found her. He thought of his real daughter, long gone, and for the first time in years he allowed himself to whisper into the quiet darkness, "Sleep well, little one." He said it softly so she would not hear, but deep inside he knew the truth. The law of the galaxy might forbid him, but in secret, in his heart, he was already breaking the rules, and one day soon there would be no going back. The ruins were no longer safe. For days, the man and the alien child had hidden in broken tunnels, eating scraps, moving only at night. But now the patrols had grown sharper. Soldiers searched every corner, every shadow. Rumors spread of rewards for those who gave information. The net was closing. That evening, the man listened carefully as the sound of engines echoed closer. Not the distant hum of patrol ships, this was heavier, closer. Ground vehicles, boots, many boots. The girl's silver eyes widened. She whispered, "They are coming." The man grabbed her hand, his voice low but sharp. "Stay close. Do not speak. Do not let go." They slipped into the tunnels, their footsteps light against the damp floor. The child pressed against his side, trembling but silent. The sound of soldiers grew louder above them. Lights cut through cracks in the walls. Voices barked orders. "Search every room. She is near. The alien child cannot hide forever." The man's chest tightened. They knew. Someone must have spoken. Someone must have betrayed them. He pulled the girl deeper into the tunnels, guiding her with steady hands. But the soldiers were everywhere now. Their scanners flashed red beams through the gaps, almost catching them more than once. Each time the man pressed the girl against the wall, his own body shielding hers, his breath shallow as the light swept past. At last, they reached an old metal grate. The man knelt, wrench in hand, forcing the rusted bolts loose. The girl clutched his shoulder, watching the tunnel behind them with wide, frightened eyes. "Hurry," she whispered. "They are coming closer." He gritted his teeth, sweat dripping down his face. With a final crack, the grate gave way. He pulled it aside and pushed the girl through. She slid into the dark passage beyond, her small body vanishing into the shadows. "Go," he hissed. She hesitated, reaching for him. "Not without you." His heart twisted. For a second, he saw his real daughter again. The same stubborn eyes, the same refusal to let go. He forced himself to be firm. "Move, child. I am right behind you." Reluctantly, she crawled forward. He followed, pulling the grate back into place just as boots pounded into the tunnel behind them. Flashlights swept across the floor. Voices shouted, "They were here. Search the pipes." The man and the girl crawled through the narrow passage, the stench of rust and mold filling their lungs. Metal groaned under their weight. Rats scurried past. But they kept moving, every muscle tense, every heartbeat like thunder. Then came the sound that froze them both. Barking. Dogs. The soldiers had unleashed trackers. The growls echoed through the tunnels, sharp and hungry. The girl's breathing quickened. The man placed a hand over her mouth gently. "Quiet," he whispered. "Trust me." They reached a fork in the tunnel. One path led deeper underground, the other toward faint light above. He hesitated. Deeper meant safety for now, but light meant escape. Behind them, the dogs snarled closer and closer. He made his choice. "Up," he said, pushing the girl toward the light. She climbed, small hands gripping the broken ladder, pulling herself through the narrow shaft. He followed, his body straining against the metal rungs. The shaft opened into a ruined street. The night sky stretched above them, cold and endless. Fires still burned in the distance. The girl gasped for breath, her silver eyes wide with terror, but they had no time. The sound of dogs echoed below. Soldiers shouted, climbing after them. "Run!" the man ordered. They sprinted across the street, their footsteps loud against the cracked stone. Shadows stretched long in the moonlight. The girl stumbled, but the man pulled her up, never slowing. Behind them, the first soldiers emerged from the shaft, their weapons glowing red. "Stop!" a voice roared. "In the name of galactic law." Bolts of light tore through the air, striking the ground near their feet. Dust exploded upward. The girl screamed, but the man shielded her, dragging her into the cover of a collapsed building. They ducked behind broken walls as the soldiers advanced, weapons ready. The man's breath came in sharp gasps. He had no weapon strong enough to fight them. Only his hands. Only his will. The girl looked up at him, tears streaking her face. "We cannot win." He shook his head, his voice firm. "We do not need to win. We only need to escape." He spotted a narrow gap between two ruined towers, barely wide enough for the girl to slip through. Beyond it, darkness stretched, a chance at survival. "Go," he said, her eyes filled with fear. "What about you?" "I will be right behind you." She shook her head violently. "No, you will leave me." For a moment, the man froze. The truth was heavy in his chest. He had thought about it, leaving her, ending this risk. But when he looked at her trembling form, her stubborn eyes, her desperate hope, he knew he could not. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "I will not leave you, not now. Not ever." Her breath caught. Then slowly she nodded. Together they slipped through the gap, crawling into the darkness beyond. The soldiers' voices grew fainter. their lights fading behind them. At last, the man and the child collapsed in a hidden cave, their chests heaving, sweat dripping down their faces. For a long time, neither spoke. Only the sound of their ragged breathing filled the air. Then softly the girl whispered, "You kept your promise. You stayed." The man looked at her, his body still trembling from the chase. He had no answer. But in his heart he knew the truth. For the first time in years he had chosen someone over himself. And for the first time he had felt alive again. Outside the soldiers searched. The law of the galaxy hunted them. But in the cave, in the fragile silence, the bond between human and alien grew stronger. The escape was not the end. It was only the beginning of something far more dangerous, and the man knew there was no turning back now. The cave was dark and silent, but the man could not rest. His body ached from running. His lungs burned with every breath, yet his mind was louder than the silence. The girl slept near the wall, curled into a small ball, her silver eyes closed at last. She looked fragile, like she could break at any moment. And yet she had survived. She had clung to him when death was one step behind. He stared at her for a long time. Something heavy grew inside his chest. He wanted to call her daughter. He wanted to say the word she begged for. But fear choked him. Not fear of the soldiers, fear of himself. Fear of what it would mean if he let her into the place in his heart that had been sealed since his real daughter's death. Morning came. The sun rose weakly over the broken colony, its light cutting through the cracks of the cave. They shared their last pieces of food. The girl smiled as she gave him the larger portion, whispering, "That's what daughters do." The man said nothing. But guilt burned in his chest. Later they crept into the ruined town to find supplies. Other survivors had gathered there, humans who kept their distance from the alien child. Whispers spread quickly when they saw her walking beside him. One man stepped forward, his eyes narrow. "You're making a mistake. That thing will bring soldiers down on all of us." "She is only a child," the engineer answered. His voice was low, controlled, but sharp. The survivor spat on the ground. "A child? No, she is a lawbreaker's curse. The galaxy doesn't forgive humans who forget their place." Others nodded, their faces hard. The girl shrank back, clutching the man's arm. Her trembling fingers pressed against his sleeve, but she stayed silent. The man felt anger rising in him, but also shame. These were his people. They followed the law, the same law that had kept order after centuries of war, and he was breaking it with every step he took beside her. That night he sat apart from the girl, staring into the fire. The survivor's words replayed in his head. His chest felt heavy, like he was carrying chains. When the girl came closer, her small voice broke the silence.
"Why do they hate me?"
The man closed his eyes. He wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her it was not hate, only fear. But the truth was crueler. "Because you chose me," he whispered, her lips trembled. "And you? Do you hate me too?" He turned to her sharply. "Do not ask me that." Tears welled in her eyes. She stood, fists clenched. "Then tell me, am I your daughter or not?" The fire cracked between them. His heart thundered in his chest. He wanted to say yes, but the words stuck in his throat like poison. At last the weight of fear crushed him, and he shouted louder than he meant to. "I cannot be your father." The words exploded through the cave. The girl's face crumpled. Her silver eyes widened, shimmering with tears that spilled down her cheeks. She shook her head slowly, whispering, Then I am nothing." Before he could move, before he could take back the words, she turned and ran into the night. "Wait," he called, his voice breaking. He stumbled to his feet, but she was already gone, her small figure vanishing into the ruins. Panic surged through him. He had seen what lurked in the dark. Patrols. Dogs. Worse things that hunted in silence. The girl would not survive alone. He grabbed his wrench, his heart racing, and ran into the night. The ruins stretched around him, shadows twisting under the weak moonlight. He called her name, his voice echoing against broken walls. No answer. He searched every alley, every collapsed house, his throat burning as he shouted again and again. Guilt tore at him with every step. He had pushed her away. He had broken her heart, and now she was gone. Then at last a sound split the night, a scream, high and sharp, filled with terror. The man's blood ran cold. It was her. He sprinted toward the sound, his legs burning, his chest on fire. The scream came again, weaker this time. His mind raced with images he couldn't bear. Her silver eyes filled with fear, her small hands reaching for help that never came. He burst into a ruined courtyard. The sight froze him. The girl was cornered against a wall, her arms raised to shield herself. 3 soldiers stood before her, their weapons glowing red. One reached for her arm. She kicked and screamed, but she was too small, too weak. The man's vision turned red. Without thinking, he charged. The wrench in his hand became a weapon. He slammed it into the first soldier, sending him crashing to the ground. The second turned, shouting, but the man's rage was unstoppable. He struck again and again, every blow fueled by the guilt in his chest by the word he had refused to say. The third soldier raised his weapon, aiming at the girl. She screamed, "Father!" The word tore through him. In that instant, there was no law, no fear, no galaxy. There was only her. With a roar, he hurled himself at the soldier, knocking the weapon aside. They crashed to the ground, struggling in the dirt. The man's strength came not from his body, but from his heart. He refused to let her be taken. He refused to lose another daughter. At last, the courtyard fell silent. The soldiers lay scattered, weapons broken. The man stood shaking, blood on his hands, his chest heaving. The girl clung to him, tears streaming down her face. "You came back," she whispered. "Even after you said no," he could not speak. His throat burned, his chest heavy, but he held her tightly, his arms around her trembling body. In that moment, he knew the truth. He could lie to her. He could lie to himself. But his actions had already spoken louder than any law. He had chosen, and one day soon he would have to admit it with words. The courtyard smelled of smoke and blood. The soldiers the man had struck down lay silent, but he knew more would come. The girl clung to him, her thin arms wrapped around his waist, her body trembling. Her voice was small but sharp with fear. "They will send others, stronger ones." He looked at her, his heart heavy. She was right. Killing 3 soldiers was not an escape. It was an invitation for war. They would come with more, and they would not stop until she was captured. Or until he was dead. He tightened his grip on the wrench, the metal slick in his hands. "We move, now." They ran through the ruins, the night air burning in their lungs. Alarms echoed in the distance, sirens wailing across the colony. Lights swept across the sky, red and white beams searching. Every shadow felt alive. The girl struggled to keep up, but she never let go of his hand. Her silver eyes glowed in the dark, full of both terror and trust. "They know where we are. They are hunting us." The man's jaw tightened. "Then let them come." Moments later, the ground shook. Heavy boots. The rumble of armored vehicles. Voices called out orders in the distance. He pushed the girl into a narrow alley, pressing her against the wall. "Stay here. Do not move, no matter what happens." Her eyes widened. "No, don't leave me." He placed a hand on her cheek, rough but gentle. "I will not leave you. But if they take me, you must run." Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head fiercely. "I will not run. If you fall, I fall." His heart clenched. He wanted to argue, but there was no time. The sound of soldiers grew louder, closer, their armored figures marching into the alley. The first soldier raised his weapon, its red barrel glowing. "Surrender the alien child. Human. You are under arrest by order of galactic law." The man stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and the girl. His voice was steady even as his heart thundered. "She is not a weapon. She is not a threat. She is a child." The soldier's visor glowed coldly. "She is property of the council. You have broken the law. Step aside and you may be given mercy." The girl's hand clutched the man's sleeve. "Father," she whispered. That single word broke the last chain of fear inside him. He raised his wrench, his eyes burning with fire. "I will not give her to you." The soldiers moved as one. Blasts of energy filled the alley, lighting the night in red. The man leapt forward, swinging the wrench with brutal strength. He struck one soldier down, but another fired, the bolt grazing his shoulder. Pain tore through him, but he did not fall. The girl screamed his name, her voice cracking with terror. He fought harder, fueled by her cry. He smashed weapons aside, his body moving like a storm. But there were too many. A soldier grabbed the girl by the arm, pulling her from the wall. She kicked and screamed, her silver eyes wide with terror. "Father, please!" The man roared, breaking free from the soldier who held him. He charged, slamming into the captor with such force that the wall cracked behind them. He tore the girl free, pulling her into his arms, but in that moment a blast struck his back. His body jerked. He staggered, pain searing through him like fire. The girl's scream echoed in his ears. "No! Don't leave me!" His knees buckled, but he forced himself to stand. Blood dripped from his wounds, his strength fading. Still he held the wrench, still he shielded the girl. The soldiers advanced again. His vision blurred, his breath ragged. He knew he could not last much longer. The girl pressed her forehead against his chest, tears streaming down her face. "You cannot die. You promised you would stay. You are my father." The word filled him with power greater than any law, greater than any pain. He raised his wrench once more, his body screaming in protest. His voice thundered through the alley, raw and unbreakable. "She is my daughter." With those words, he surged forward, striking with the strength of a man who refused to surrender. Blow after blow, he drove the soldiers back, his blood staining the ground. Each strike carried more than strength. It carried love, desperation, and the fury of a father who had nothing left to lose. At last, the remaining soldiers fell back, retreating into the shadows. Alarms still wailed in the distance, but the alley was silent again. The man collapsed to one knee, his body broken, his breath shallow. The girl caught him, her small hands trembling as she held him upright. "Don't close your eyes," she begged, her voice shaking. "Stay with me, please." He looked at her, his vision dim. For the first time, he did not fight the word. He let it rest on his tongue, soft but full of truth. "Maybe I was your father all along." Her tears fell like rain, but her silver eyes shined with fierce light. She pressed her face against his chest, whispering, "Then I will never let you go." The man closed his eyes, not in surrender, but in peace. The battle was not over. The soldiers would return. The galaxy would hunt them still. But in that moment, he knew one thing beyond doubt. He had chosen her. And no law, no army, no world could break the bond they had forged in fire and blood. The dawn rose weakly over the ruins, painting the broken colony in pale gold. Smoke still drifted from collapsed buildings, and the air carried the bitter smell of fire and dust. The man sat against a cracked wall, his body wounded and weak, every breath sharp with pain. The girl knelt beside him, her small hands pressed against his side as if her touch alone could keep him alive. For hours she had not left him. She had not slept. Her silver eyes stayed on him, filled with worry and stubborn light. "You cannot die," she whispered again, as if repeating the words would keep them true. "If you leave me, I will have no one." He placed a trembling hand on her cheek. His voice was rough, broken. "I am still here. I will not leave you." The girl buried her face against his chest, her arms wrapping around him tightly. She was so small, yet the warmth of her embrace pushed away the cold pain inside him. But the danger was not over. At midday, they reached a hidden human outpost, deep in the mountains. The man stumbled into the gates, half carrying, half dragged by the girl who refused to let him fall. The guards rushed to meet them, their faces tense when they saw the alien child at his side. One of them shouted, "Close the gates. She brings death with her." The man fell to his knees, gripping the ground, but his voice rang out with surprising strength. "She is with me." Whispers spread through the outpost. Some humans looked at the girl with pity, others with fear, many with hate. An officer stepped forward, his armor scratched but polished, his expression stern. "You know the law. No human may claim an alien child. Give her up and perhaps the council will forgive your crimes." The girl stiffened, clutching the man's arm. Her silver eyes filled with terror. She whispered, "Don't let them take me, please." The officer's voice grew harder. "Choose, engineer, your life, or the life of a child who is not yours." The man's chest tightened. His body shook from pain and exhaustion, but his heart was stronger than ever. He remembered the nights in the tunnels, the sound of her calling him father, the way she had smiled even when there was no hope. He remembered how she had saved him not with weapons but with the simple gift of trust. Slowly, painfully, he stood. His voice was raw but steady. "She is mine." Gasps spread through the outpost. The officer's eyes narrowed. "Do you understand what you are saying? To speak those words is to break the law of the galaxy." The man stepped forward, placing himself in front of the girl. His body was weak, but his stance was unshakable. His voice carried across the courtyard. "I have followed laws all my life. They gave me order. They gave me safety, but they never gave me family. She gave me that. Not the council. Not the galaxy, her." The girl's breath caught. She looked up at him, tears glimmering in her silver eyes. The man turned his gaze to the officer, his words sharper than steel. "I am her father, and she is my daughter." The silence that followed was heavy, almost holy. The officer's face twisted with anger. "Then you are no longer one of us. You are an enemy of the law, and enemies are dealt with swiftly." The girl pressed against him, shaking, but he placed a steady hand on her shoulder. His eyes did not waver. Then let the galaxy come. I will never let her go. For the first time, he felt no fear. He had already lost everything once. This time, he had something worth fighting for. Something worth breaking the law for. Around them, the humans of the outpost whispered among themselves. Some looked horrified. Others looked thoughtful. A few even looked inspired. For deep in their hearts, many had lost children too. Many had buried hope. And now they saw a man daring to claim it again. The officer gave no order that day. Perhaps he feared rebellion. Perhaps he feared the look in the engineer's eyes. In the end, he turned away, his voice cold. Then you walk the path of exile. The council will hunt you until the stars themselves fade. The man nodded. Let them hunt. They will not take her. That night, in the quiet of a small room given to them, the girl sat beside him. She was silent for a long time, as if afraid to break the fragile moment. Then softly she asked, "When you said those words, did you mean them?" The man turned to her. His face was tired, his body broken, but his eyes burned with fire. "Yes, I meant everyone." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of joy. She threw her arms around him, holding him as tightly as her small body allowed. "Then I am not nothing anymore," she whispered. "I am your daughter." He closed his eyes, resting his hand gently on her head. For the first time since the war, he felt whole again, not because the galaxy had given him peace,